What's up, Houston Hacks fans? We're back with another week. This week we face Nutshaq, and you can probably tell already, but I am pretty sick right now, so excuse me for that. But let's get right into it. So here's a matchup against good old Nutshaq. It's been a while, it's been a while since I've played him. And he has gotten better. One thing about Nutshaq, he's gotten better every single season. And I think he's a really scary player. I really don't want to see his team come playoff time. But regardless, um, initially looking at his team, I look and I see, all right, he's got the three big boys down at the bottom. Those are his defensive switch-ins. He likes to ban them. He likes to AV. They're all great AV Pokemon too, so Assault Vest. So I was thinking, I thought he would bring probably two of those, but I was prepared for him to bring all three if he needed to. Again, something that jumps out to me, Ditto. Okay, so setting up and sweeping is always going to be a threat because he does have Ditto. So that did influence exactly what I wanted to run with Mew, but we were able to make it work. As well as Ditto can just naturally switch into a few of my Mons, specifically being Arcanine with Flash Fire and Jolteon with Volt Absorb. So I thought Ditto actually would have been a really good bring against me. Rotom Wash I knew 100% had to come as it just walled a lot of my team. The Water Electric was really good typing. And because of the water, it's able to hit Piloswine, it's able to hit Claydol really hard, and I can't just wall it. So really good Mon. I definitely thought that would come. I did think the Ufesdent would come. It hits extremely hard. I thought he would bring the crit version of the Ufesdent, so he would run Super Luck and then like the whatever item gives you another crit thing. And I think he did, because he did wind up critting me twice. Because I thought just having the coverage and quick attack would have been really nice for him. And it worked out. Drapion, I thought, was a decent option. I thought maybe there were better Mons once you start to look at it. But Drapion is a really good answer, especially if it was AV against my Mew. I believe his was offensive, at least from looking at the calcs. Obviously, I thought Haxorus was coming for sure too. I thought it was just too good of a Pokemon for him to leave, too big of a threat. I figured that Dragon Dance made a lot of sense against me, as well as Swords Dance, since it's faster than most of my team. But you just got to be ready for that first impression as well, which we'll see in the battle exactly how it works out. But I think he wound up bringing Banded, though. Then lastly, I thought Ninetales was a decent answer as well to my team, whether it be Drought or Flash Fire. I thought Flash Fire made a lot of sense on his team. And his Ninetales, obviously, you see that 5-0. I mean, it can do some work, especially after a nasty plot. I thought Dracloak maybe just for Mew, but even then, it has to run Shadow Ball, as it doesn't really have any physical shadow attacking moves. And Shadow Ball, even if it's specs, does like 60 or 70 to Mew. Just not enough. Not enough to really warrant bringing it. I felt, especially when I have Grimmsnarl, which can set up all over it, doesn't really have any good options to hit it. So looking at this game, I was thinking I set up Grimmsnarl right away. I kind of went back and forth on it. I had it originally, and then I got rid of it. And I was thinking Fast Golisopod actually put in a bunch of work, especially against his bottom three. Okay, those bottom three, Golisopod, because I did go Adamant max speed, I knew I'd be able to outspeed. And then with close combat, water plus bug, I knew I just hit super, super hard. So close combat would be wiping the Copperaja, liquidation, hitting Mudsdale really hard, and then a bug move for Delmise. And then if they switched in on my Golisopod, I'm able to get off 2 hits in a row, which is pretty unique and pretty doesn't happen a lot, because 40 speed is not a ton. Didn't really think Togechick could do anything. Again, just looking for my week to use it. Actually, I think its matchup against Henrik is pretty good, and I think it's okay in my next week against the Copperajas against Ben. Looking at Drampa, he has no Fairy type and no way to switch into Dragon moves. So this was my week to run Specs. Running Specs and then Draco Meteor. Draco pretty much killed anything. literally running the calcs, it killed everything unless max HP Copperaja could actually take 2 Dracos. So I round up running fast Drampa as well, fast and offensive Drampa with Draco and Dragon Pulse, and then I had a couple other coverage moves. But really all I needed was Dragon coverage, as Copperaja was his only resist, and everything else was going to take a ton of damage from the Drampa. So I knew if Copperaja was gone or I could get rid of it, I knew nothing could come in on Draco, and I would be claiming some free kills. Palace Wine, always a good mon, never a bad mon to bring. Stable stealth rocker, and having ice priority. Ice was actually really good. I mean, hits Delmise, hits Mudsdale. Obviously, Earthquake hits Copperaja, hits Unfezant. Earthquake hits Drapion. Okay, ice move for Haxorus. Earthquake for Ninetales. Like, no matter what, it's just bulky, really good bulky offense against this team. Obviously, Rotom Wash can come in, but then I can get my rocks up. Okay, and then I can switch into Drampa to take whatever water or electric move that I want to take. Claydol, I was thinking about running a Teleport Claydol set, but just decided against it. Teleport's actually an amazing move, as it is a -6 priority, meaning you're always getting things in safely, and getting Drampa and Glossopod in safely was actually big time, at least in the plan. But there just wasn't enough room for Claydol. Arcanine, if you look at his team, nothing really wants to take Banded Flare Blitz. And so I'm able to work around, unless he runs Ditto or he runs Flash Fire Ninetales. And so Arcanine, I decided to make it banded, but I also made it justified. So that way, when Ditto came in, it would still take 50% from the Flare Blitz. And then Ninetales, if he went Drought, which makes sense against my team, I mean, really boosts his attacks. With Drought, Ninetales would get 2-hit KO'd as well. If he was Flash Fire, I could try to predict on the switch and hit him with another move, but just didn't work out that way. We'll see how the battle goes. Mew, again, I mean, I haven't really lied, but I brought defensive Mew like one time this week, actually the first game of the year. But I just ran, this time, Expert Belt Mew, which I think might be the new normal here, because Mew has so much coverage, and Expert Belt just means that you don't die from things. Expert Belt or Life Orb. So I ran Expert Belt Mew, and I ran enough coverage to hit absolutely everything. Obviously, Ice hits his team really, really well. So I ran Ice, a Grass move for Rotom Wash, because I needed something that could really hit that Rotom Wash hard. And then my last move, I believe, was a Flamethrower. I could be wrong, for Copperaja. So let's check out the actual team. I kind of explained all of it already, but my choice band Arcanine, pretty deadly mon, as I'm able to fire off the extreme speeds against his team, which can be pretty fast, as well as sending off that Flare Blitz. So if there's no Flash Fire, I'm sending out that Flare Blitz. Obviously, I went Justified. I could have switched it in on a Dark move. Never really got the opportunity to, but by running Justified, the Ditto was not a switch in against my Arcanine. Moving on to the Glossopod, really wound up being the MVP of this game. Just the amount of power that Life Orb, plus being faster than all of his slow guys, and then providing that coverage on top of having the ability to attack first with First Impression and Aqua Jet. Just a really valuable mon, I think, underrated, and it's a good defensive switch in, especially with its ability. If you can use this as a pivot piece and not die, because it just needs to have like 1% health to fire off First Impressions or Aqua Jets. So Glossopod, actually great mon. I just haven't been able to bring it to a ton of games, but had a really good matchup. Really impressed with it. Lastly, my Palace Wine, again, just it's kind of a matchup proof Pokemon, having the ground and ice type coverage. I knew I needed to run defensive typing for the Haxorus and also for the Ufezant. And I believe I made it so I would survive a +2 close combat from the Haxorus. So this was a lot of pressure on Palace Wine defensively, but I mean, offensively, it's able to take almost any hit. And then at least with Avalanche, I have a 100% accurate move that I can hit a Mon back with. So I was a little bit nervous about going for the Icicle Crash, although it was, a great move, but 90% accuracy, just couldn't really afford that Haxorus to just start sweeping my team. Mew, I knew could clean the game with the coverage of Ice Beam, Energy Ball, Earth Power. So I was just trying to weaken Nutshaq's team as a secondary win condition, bringing in the Mew Expert Belt to just kind of, if I could get everything below 70 about, Mew could come in and outspeed almost everything and win. And then I had spikes in case he did bring his Ditto. I would only do about 25% to myself. So if he did bring his Ditto, I could get a ton of spikes up, which really most of his team was on the ground. So I could really pressure his team that way. But we'll see what happens here when I click play. Lastly, we got Drampa, who's just a beast. Honestly, I only needed these two moves and then Flamethrower. My plan was to lead Drampa. Hopefully he wouldn't lead Haxorus, because by leading Haxorus, I thought that would be a nice setup option for his team, and so he wouldn't want to start out with it right away. But regardless, Drampa, and then I was thinking about either clicking Flamethrower just to try to hit his Copperajah on the switch if he has it, or I can just play it safe and Dragon Pulse or Draco Meteor. Even the Copperajah takes over half from Draco Meteor. So going into my Grimmsnarl, the item that the Grimmsnarl did have was Black Glasses, because I needed to increase the amount of damage I could do with my dark moves, specifically my Sucker Punch. Obviously, Darkest Lariat also is improved. Really cool tech here, running the Stomping Tantrum. The Stomping Tantrum, if he decided to switch on one of my Sucker Punches, Stomping Tantrum doubles in power. And so the plan was, if he did have Copperajah, was to Sucker Punch, because then when Copperajah came in, I could outspeed, hopefully, unless he ran Adamant max speed, and then I could Stomping Tantrum and kill it as 150 base power ground move. Just rips through a lot of his team. Actually, the coverage is really nice. Even Drapion would have been a good switch to my Grimmsnarl, and so having that double power Stomping Tantrum was actually pretty clutch. Pretty intricate EV spread. I wanted to be able to survive specific things from all his mons, specifically Mudsdale's Heavy Slam. I was a little bit worried about. And so I put in as much defense as I could, but I didn't want to get 2-hit KO'd by Rotom Wash's Hydro Pump. So basically EV'd it so I'd survive Rotom Wash's Hydro Pump. This also let me survive Ninetales if it was Flash Fire. I believe Flamethrower twice, or Fire Blast twice. So I was able to set up on the Ninetales. I was able to set up on the Rotom Wash. And then defensively, I needed to be able to take hits from Drapion. Couldn't 2-hit KO me. Neither could Mudsdale, if I'm able to get my bulk up off. So let's finally get to the battle. Excuse me. Here we go. Let's go first turn. So I send out my Drampa, calling his bluff of leading Haxorus, and he led Haxorus. It's okay. We're able to, but really did not the start that we wanted. I was a little bit nervous on what I should bring in here, as he could just claim one pretty easily. Now, he couldn't just freely go for a Dragon move, which was really nice, because I do have the Grimmsnarl, but regardless, he winds up going for a fighting move. I was expecting close combat, and I knew that my Glossopod could take fighting moves very well, as it only takes 20% here. I can freely go for the first impression, as he doesn't have any bug switch-ins, and it does 77%, which is incredible. I see that Aqua Jet will finish him off by his EV spread. He must have been offensive. He didn't have any HP at least, and so I'm able to take it out with my Kelks. But again, bringing the Drampa, see that he brings screens, which actually are a little bit of a problem. I do 33% through the screens, which is pretty awesome. That's a ton of damage. I mean, that means my Dragon Pulse was only doing would be doing 66 to a Rotom Wash, which is really bulky. Here, I decide I'm just going to keep pressuring him, going for those Dragon Pulses, as nothing really wants to take a Specs Dragon Pulse even behind a light screen, except for like we said earlier, we thought that those bottom three mons, his bulky boys, if you will, we thought one of them would be Assault Vest. He only takes 17%, which he is behind a light screen, so that's cut in half. But running the Kelks, there is no way you should be taking Dragon Pulse for 17%, even behind a light screen. So this is where I figured out he's max HP, max Spadef, and the Salt Vest on top of that, which makes sense. He needs some type of special option, and as it raises up in defense, that's pretty nice. This is where I really, really, really am happy that I brought Darkest Lariat on my Grimmsnarl, as I know he's not defensively invested, so I'm able to take advantage, as the Mudsdale was actually a big problem for that setting up. So continue the battle. I decided to switch out of here because I thought he'd have a fighting move. He decides to double. Great double to into his Ufesdent. I bring out my Piloswine. He gets the crit, so I'm pretty, and it's not banded calc-wise, so I'm pretty sure it's Razor Claw. And here I got to make a choice. My Avalanche through the screens does like 60% through the screens, or I can get Rocks up. And Rocks pressures his team a ton, as all of his mons are taking neutral damage, or ×2 if you're Ufesdent. And so I knew I could get Rocks up, pressure the rest of his team, and then then go for the priority ice type attack and try to get some damage off. This is where I do wind up getting pretty lucky. I could have killed it with my Avalanche, but that's the way it goes. He goes for a quick attack. I go for my priority ice move. If I would have went for Avalanche, that would have been the best of both worlds. I go for Ice Shard again. Luckily, he does not go for quick attack, and he's able to switch. Gets his Reflect off, but because of the timing there, let me just go back. It took me a while to look at this turn. So I'm able to crit. He brings in the Rotom Wash. And I realize there's one turn of Light Screen left, so I know I can get in if I can get the Mew in next turn, because I literally can't do anything to this. I'm able to fire off an Energy Ball without a Light Screen up, so I'm able to actually kill the Rotom Wash. So that's the plan. Bring in Mew. I mean, at this point, I'm like, I think I win. Light Screen is down. Pretty much everything's in range. I mean, the Mudsdale would have survived, but I could have gotten off too. Now, if he's adamant, this kills every single time. If he's banded, which I believe he was adamant. I think there's no reason for him not to be. But if he was not adamant, it was about a 50-50 chance for me to die. Like it was like the calc was like 95 to 105, something like that. And if he was choice banded, and then I obviously could not die otherwise if he wasn't locked into choice band. So I decided to go for the move. I totally had a sack to make, and so I probably should have just brought out Piloswine and then brought Mew back in, because Ice Beam just basically sweeps from here on out. Just being able to go for Ice Beam and basically going to 2-hit KO everything now that Light Screen's on up. So I really should have saved the Mew. The Mew, I could have added to its kill count by 3 more if I decided to save it, but just a misplay. I was still safe. I mean, because of the crit on the Ufesdent, it just put a lot of pressure on his team. But here I know I'm able to just go in with my Grimmsnarl and start bulking up as much as possible to try to waste these Reflect turns. He winds up having so many Reflect turns. It's unbelievable. But luckily he's not defensively invested. So here I actually took a long time to calc this, but because I thought he was max defense, I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh, I think I made a mistake. But luckily Darkest Lariat's able to kill. And now I can Sucker Punch through the rest of his team if I would like, but I have to call his bluff on first impression. So I decided to switch out, make it safe, sack my Piloswine. Sucker Punch would have been fine there. Here I can show the power of my Ymir again, going for first impression, absolutely destroying the, and this crit didn't matter, depending on my calc. I mean, I could have got, a high roll versus 2 high rolls in a row, but according to my calculations, I would have been just fine there. Here I decided to just sack. If I would have went for close combat, I could have killed there. But I thought he would use some type of, I thought he was going to kill me on the first attack. Here I decided to give my kill to Grimmsnarl. I could have gave it to Arcanine, but I decided to rest Arcanine, as it's going to have a lot of work to do as we go through playoffs. It's definitely one of my cornerstone mons, so definitely need it to rest up and be ready for next week. So, all right, guys, that's going to be week 9 already. We play the Copperajazz next week against Ben. His team is very, very scary. I think his team is way better than whatever his record reflects it. And then we finally end up with our heavily anticipated Week 11 match versus Henrik, a rematch of the championship from last year. So I'm super excited. This does put us to 6-4 on the year. So not doing too bad, especially since all 4 of those losses had 50-50s in them, in which could have gave us opportunities to get a few more wins. So rather lose in the regular season than in the playoffs. Luckily, we're able to come and get this victory today. Nutshaq's a very good player, and I hope he is able to make the playoffs because I'd like to see him again. All right, I'll see y'all later. Peace.